Do you want to know the fastest way to stay broke as a real estate wholesaler? It's actually very easy, and I'm going to show you how in this video. All you have to do is chase every opportunity that pops in your inbox like it's your golden ticket. Just because you get pitched an opportunity that looks like an exciting, big money-making deal does not mean that you should get involved with it. And look, I'm not trying to be rude here. I'm not trying to dissuade you from going after deals. I'm just here to give some real talk. Look, I've trained thousands of investors during my time here as the co-founder and COO here at Real Estate Skills, where we help people start and grow profitable real estate businesses. So I talk to investors all over the country on a regular basis. And through that time, I just hear so many new wholesalers who I can easily tell that they're brand new just by the way that they carry out themselves. But these wholesalers are pitching deals that are sometimes worth tens of millions of dollars, like hotel deals or large apartment complexes or just vast acreages of land in the middle of nowhere, as if it's a gold mine kind of deal. When in fact these wholesalers really just have no idea what they have on their hands and really just don't understand the rationale as to why the deal even makes sense as a good investment. They really just have no business flipping these types of deals, not because that they're inherently bad deals, right? Some of these might actually be decent opportunities, but the fact is a lot of these wholesalers just have no idea what makes it a good deal and why anybody should buy these properties, right? And this means that they just can't communicate anything about the investment opportunity other than what they might have heard from the seller or another wholesaler that brought them the deal or a real estate broker. And I see this especially prevalent in this JV culture where, a lot of new wholesalers only focus on daisy chaining other wholesalers' deals. And quite frankly, if that's your main way of getting deals is just going to other wholesalers, I just think that's a poor way of going about this business. And it's frankly just kind of lazy, right? And I'm not saying that you can't make money doing it. I've JV deals. And so I'm not saying that that is invalid at all, but I just think that if you're serious about this business, you're capable of so much more as a wholesaler, as an investor. And at the end of the day, I think you can provide so much more value in the real estate ecosystem, right? So I just want more for you. And at the end of the day, to be a more successful investor that does more deals and actually makes money. So here are 3 easy steps to make sure that you stay broke as a wholesaler and waste a ton of time along the way. Step number 1 is ignore your game plan. If you're in the business of buying and selling single family homes, don't try to go out and wholesale commercial buildings, right? That you have no idea how to underwrite or that you don't really know how to get under contract, right? Maybe just someone brought that to you and sent it to your email or called you about it. Don't get so excited and try to drop everything that you're doing and go ahead and try to wholesale a large commercial property, right? A retail strip center, when all you really know or have knowledge about is single family deals, right? It's just a complete waste of time at the end of the day. And I want you to value your time just as much as a high earning CEO, because at the end of the day, the time that you waste is an opportunity cost if you're really focused and ultimately can close deals that you're capable of. And once you do get exposure to a specific asset class, once you get some experience operating those deals or at least underwriting and selling and just really spending time in that space, then you're going to have a lot more success with other types of real estate, right? Because there's a lot of different types of real estate out there. I'll be the first to admit that a lot of people who sign up for real estate programs or pay for mentorship or really just find someone that is willing to give them the time to show them a path to actually make money in real estate, they unfortunately just don't always listen to that advice. They don't actually stick with the plan and stick with the program. Here at Real Estate Skills, we've literally worked with thousands of students in our Pro Wholesaler VIP program where we teach acquisitions, right? Many of our students are able to close deals within 30 to 60 days of implementing our step-by-step detailed systems because they stick with the game plan, right? They show up every single day. They take advantage of our expert guidance and our coaching calls, and they ask us to review their deals on a regular basis so they get that feedback, right? They understand what they're doing and they can accelerate their knowledge. That's why we have a paid expert mentorship program. And these students leverage our systems to close deals without any overhead or marketing costs. However, I'll be honest, there are many students even the students in our program who join us, but especially the people who are just trying to do this all on their own without any help or any experience, who will start and just simply get shiny object syndrome and stray off the straight line road that we've paid for them, right? We have a step-by-step straight line path to getting your first deal, often in 30 days or less. But a lot of students come in here and ignore the process and think they know what's better for them than the mentors that they've hired to help them. And what exactly does this look like? It can take the form of driving around neighborhoods endlessly on nights and weekends, looking at distressed properties, right? They call this driving for dollars. And they're just cruising aimlessly, making a list of deals that they think are great opportunities, right? And when I say deals, I mean just houses that they think might be a good fix and flip or a wholesale, anything that looks kind of distressed. They'll spend hours, days, even weeks wasting time making lists of crappy looking houses without ever doing anything with those leads other than driving around and feeling like they're wholesaling. And at the end of the day, they're just busy, right? They're just wasting time. And it also looks like hopping from real estate strategy to real estate strategy without actually sticking to a single one, right? One week it might be our MLS offer system, and the next it might be creative finance, right? Because they heard someone talking about that. And the next week they're off to EMD lending. And the next week they're doing co-living or midterm rentals, right? They're just hopping from shiny object to shiny object, right? The talk of the week to the next one, and they don't really see anything through. And unfortunately, they'll pursue strategies that they really can't even have any ability to perform on because it's just that dopamine hit. Like they're just addicted to that new thing, but they don't have the discipline to really sit down and focus and continue on a path to ultimately see it through and make money and achieve that success. Look, at the end of the day, I really do want the best for you. And I want you to learn from my mistakes and from my experiences. And sometimes that just means some tough love and really just being frank about what I see a lot of, especially new people, get into and the traps that they fall into to ultimately not achieve success. I've been around in this business for over a decade, and I've been in long enough to see a lot of people go in and go out just because they thought it was going to be a get-rich-quick scheme. They wanted an overnight success, and they never really give it the time of day to achieve the massive opportunities within the real estate industry. They want the quick hits, again, the dopamine, the get-rich-quick schemes. They saw someone making money on TikTok who was 21 years old, and they thought, hey, I can do it if this person can do it. But the reality is you really just have to do your research and find a strategy that works for you. And then you have to work that strategy for it to work. So I want to share with you a real story of one of my students who I was chatting with earlier this week. Let's call her Amy. And look, Amy, if you're watching this, you know I've got your back. This is just tough love, and I truly do want the best for you. But Amy hit us up, and I talked with her. She had sent us some emails. She was giving us a call, really just trying to get in touch with us early this week. With a desperate, urgent situation, right? She said she had an amazing deal on her hands and she needed our coaching. And so one of the things that we provide here at Real Estate Skills in our Pro Wholesaler program is called our Cash Buyer Concierge program, where our students can bring deals that they have under contract to us. We'll vet the deal and make sure it's a good one. And then if we like the deal, we'll actually go out there and find the buyer and JV on that deal. So we'll actually help our students get the deal to the finish line so they can focus on the acquisitions, getting it under contract, using our training, using our MLS offer system. And then if they don't want to handle the dispositions, or if they just need help with that side, we'll actually get that deal to the finish line. So Amy brought this deal to us, submitted it through our Cash Buyer Concierge deal submission form, and also was proactively reaching out to us. So this was a new student who had kind of barely begun in our program. She had barely scratched the surface on our training. And so I could tell immediately from looking at this deal that she was not following our process and was not actually taking our advice and using the mentorship that she had just invested into. She wasn't showing up to the coaching calls, and she was barely contributing in our community. So I knew there was some kind of a disconnect. But ultimately, because she was so enthusiastic about this deal, and because I just, I like to get involved with our students, I got, involved in this deal. I gave her a call and we started talking about it. So what happened with this deal after I dove into it was that this property was a 36 unit student housing complex in the middle of Georgia, somewhere that I had never heard of. I looked it up. It was a very small town. I think there's about 10,000 people in this town. And it was a, pretty nice looking student housing complex with multiple buildings. It was pretty renovated. So the story on it was that the seller had acquired it in around 2017, had spent about 5 years renovating it, turning it over, and improving the net cash flow, the net operating income on this property. So they were looking to exit because, according to the deal notes, they had achieved their ideal and optimal IRR, which is the internal rate of return. Basically, just they've achieved their desired return on this investment. So they were looking to exit, even though this was a great opportunity with a ton of upside, as all of the sellers say. So this deal landed on my student's lap. And so she had brought it to us thinking that this is an amazing deal. And the first thing I asked her was, how do you know that this is a great deal? So what she said was that this is listed online for $5.2 million. Okay. But then she also said it's off market. So, okay, well, there's a little bit of something off here. So I was like, all right, well, so you're telling me it's listed for 5.2 and you have it for how much? So she said that a broker brought her the deal that she could purchase it for $3.9 million. So I said, okay, well, it's listed somewhere and you're able to buy it for less. So that still doesn't tell me that it's a good deal. It still doesn't tell me that you even know what you're looking at the end of the day. So then I asked her, why did this deal land on your lap? Are you in this market? Are you in this city in Georgia? Are you putting yourself out there as being an apartment buyer? And her answer was no. So she was not in that market. She wasn't even looking in that market. She wasn't putting herself out there in the world as a real estate investor in that market, or even an apartment investor, period. So she was in another state, looking at smaller deals, and then all of a sudden a broker sent her this deal. So her assumption was that since somewhere online it's listed for 5.2 and this broker brought it to her, off market, in her words, which wasn't really off market, she brought her this deal for 3.9. She thought that there was a large, 7-figure profit spread on this deal. So again, like, I kind of saw, read between the lines immediately, but I wanted to just use this as a good coaching opportunity for her. So again, just asked her, like, do you know the financials? Do you understand this kind of deal? So she did send me the financials that the broker had sent her immediately, just at the net operating income, right? The NOI, that's what you want to look at large apartment buildings and any income producing real estate. So at the 3.9 million, I took the NOI, you divide it by the asking price, and then I saw that it was about a 6 cap, right? A 6% capitalization rate, which isn't really that great of a deal. It's not really that exciting, really just depending on the market. But in this small market with not a huge population, it just didn't really seem very exciting or attractive. And so kind of just coached her on that. And then at the end of the day, I just said, like, what are you going to do with this deal, right? And so she brought it to us, basically asking that, hey, like, you guys need to find the buyer for this, right? We're going to wholesale this large apartment complex. And so I just said, hey, look, like, that's not really how it works with these types of deals. It's a different type of buyer. It's a very niche specialty buyer, one for student housing in general. And I know this because I got my start in student housing in 2011. I started property management of student housing. And then I started buying properties, and now a large chunk of my portfolio is in student housing. And so I know that market pretty well. But I know that it does take a specific kind of buyer who understands the operations of that type of asset. So it's not just like every old house flipper or every old landlord is interested in this type of asset. And especially in this price point, in this unit count, the 36 unit, it's almost too small for the institutional buyers. And so there is this market there that you really have to get specialized in. So the other thing I asked her is like why now, right? Like, so she thought that she had about like a very short amount of time before this deal was going to go to somebody else. So I obviously like to look into things, right? I listen, and then I go deeper. And so I looked at the listing that was online. So it was being advertised online. And I looked at the notes. I actually just read the entire description and the story of this deal. And what I learned was that, okay, well, the seller bought it in 2017 and they had performed a 5-year plan. And now that that 5-year plan was over, they were now looking to sell to basically, optimize the return, like I was saying. So if you do the math, if they bought it in 2017 and they're finishing their 5-year plan, which is pretty standard with some of these types of, larger investments, you get in, you get out in about 5 years. That's the typical holding pattern for larger deals, especially when you're raising money from investors, like they want to exit. You go from 2017, you add 5 years, that's 2022. Okay. So there was some notes that indicated that they've been marketing this deal since 2022. So that was telling me like, hey, it's now 2025, as we're recording this, the end of 2025. I'm like, they've been trying to sell this deal for 3 years. You realize that? And so that just told me that this urgency was just, manufactured. There really wasn't any serious urgency with this deal. So again, there's just like a lot of layers involved. And so my lesson was like, look, I resonate with you, Amy, like I resonate with your enthusiasm and your willingness to chase opportunities. But at the end of the day, you joined our program and, I want you to be successful. So if you're not willing to stay focused and really stay with a specific criteria, you're going to go nowhere fast, right? And so as an investor, as a wholesaler, as someone who's putting themselves out there as an acquisitions person who's looking for opportunities, like we're going to get pitch deals all the time, right? I get pitch deals every single day, every single week. A lot of deals that I'm not interested at all. I just have to say no. So I know that, our students, if you're watching this here, you're looking for deals, you're probably out there telling people you buy real estate, and you're going to get sent a lot of deals that you really just should not pursue because they're not in your buy box, right? They're not in the asset class, the location, the price point, the return profile, the risk profile that you should really be pursuing at this stage in your career, or really at any stage. But just staying focused and dialed in is going to allow you to go so much faster and make so much more money. And I say this with experience, right? And I'm not just saying that I'm this perfect investor, because I started out just like this too, right? And that's why I think a lot of newer investors, newer wholesalers will identify with this, right? So when I got started in acquisitions back in 2015, 2016, I was putting myself out there. If you look me up online, you might even see me like with some posts or ads, looking to partner with other investors, looking for fix and flippers to partner with, looking for deals to invest in. And so I was doing anything to generate business. And it was at that time I was getting sent a lot of deals, right? Every week I'd get something landing in my inbox, a new, development project landing on my plate. I remember one in particular, it was in Corpus Christi, Texas. It was a large resort, like a waterfront resort development project where this guy was raising $7 million and was promising a 3x return in a matter of like 2 to 3 years. And so I thought that was amazing, right? Because I was getting a chunk of the equity, I was getting an acquisition fee. So I was in the business of doing deals. But at the end of the day, my cash buyers, my investors that I was working with did not do new construction. They did not invest in resort developments, but I was just chasing that down. I was pushing that so hard because I just thought that there was millions of dollars, right? There was maybe a $10 million profit exit in that kind of deal. But at the end of the day, I had no idea how to underwrite a development project back then. I didn't know a thing really about Corpus Christi other than what this person who was pitching us this opportunity was telling us. And so it was just a, relatively short amount of time that we had to make this decision. And I just saw dollar signs. But at the end of the day, I was pushing this really hard. And I really should have spent my time just focused on the deals that my investors, that my cash buyers were looking for, because that deal ended up going nowhere, right? I was thinking about it at night. I was dreaming about the profits. Being able to carve out a nice chunk of that profit was very appealing. And I thought that was my golden ticket. This is my lottery ticket, right? But so I just say this because I've been in that position as well. I've been right there with you, Amy, and anyone else who's kind of in that position. So we will see lots of deals like that as wholesalers, as acquisitions people. Just get ultra clear on what you're looking for so that you can increase the dollar per hour that you're earning, because all of our times are valuable, even if you're starting from zero. And that brings us to step 2 of how to stay broke as a wholesaler. Step 2 is to talk to every seller who has a pulse. Just because somebody wants to sell, if you have no idea what you're doing, then you probably shouldn't waste your time on that deal and not waste everybody else's time. I hear a lot of wholesalers who basically just see someone who's selling a property or hear that there's a motivated seller or see a pre-foreclosure online and think that it's the best deal, it's the best thing since sliced bread. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a defined criteria, if you don't know what your buyers are looking for, then it's probably not a good idea to pursue that deal and waste that seller's time putting it under contract. Here at Real Estate Skills, in our Pro Wholesaler program, on our YouTube channel, really everything that we teach is always starting with the end in mind. So what does that mean for a wholesaler? It means start with the exit strategy. And who's doing that exit strategy? It's your cash buyer. So if your cash buyer is a fix and flipper who buys, fix, and sells properties, then you need to understand what types of deals are they buying, where are they buying, how are they funding these deals, what profit are they looking for, and in what amount of time, right? What's that return profile are they looking for on that particular deal in that market? So we always start with our buyers first, okay? So that way we know exactly what to offer on and what price to offer to make a good wholesale deal, because we don't want to be locking up properties at way too high of a price or just using a rudimentary, 70% rule napkin math and, probably just wasting our time because they're not going to accept those kind of low offers. So in order to avoid this trap, you really need to understand what are your buyers' investment criteria? What do they buy? Where do they buy? Really all the things I just mentioned, and stick with that and get laser focused. And if you don't have that established yet, then you need to start there. Start with the end in mind. Because at the end of the day, right, we can all get shiny object syndrome. And shiny object syndrome, especially in wholesaling as a real estate wholesaler, is a recipe for self-sabotage, right? And that might look like jumping from single family homes to commercial deals, to land, to mobile homes, to commercial retail centers, or it could be switching from market to market to market, thinking that there's no deals in your market and always just trying to go to greener pastures, right? So it's all about consistency and staying focused on the lane that you're in, right? Don't just keep switching lanes, and shiny object syndrome is also like chasing deals that are outside of your experience zone, right? If you have no business of closing that deal or really just no idea how to approach that deal, then probably don't pursue that deal because it's going to waste your time. It creates paralysis, confusion, and wasted energy, right? And energy is everything. It's everything. We need to harness that energy to deals that are more likely to close, because that's how we're going to make money and not throw in the towel before we actually achieve some level of success. And that leads us to step 3 of how to stay broke as a real estate wholesaler, is wasting months on a deal that you probably never should have looked at in the first place. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone, but you probably are stuck. So the way out of this, again, is just circling back to what you started, right? Do you have a blueprint that you're following? Do you have a step-by-step process that you know is going to work if you work it? And that way, that's going to guide you back to the deals that you should be working on and not going to other opportunities that look good, but you really just don't have any ability to close on. So just don't waste all your time on one deal, especially if it's not anything that you feel like you can close or is really inside of your scope of experience and capabilities of actually doing. I really think this is one of those things that no one really talks about, but it's exactly why new wholesalers get burnt out before cashing their first check. So here are my parting words of advice that can save you years and help you become a pro. The first of which is just stay focused, right? Follow a proven process and don't get distracted. It's so easy with all the noise out there, with everyone telling you to work a different strategy, everyone telling you that they have the secrets to get rich quick in wholesaling. But just stick with the process, stick with the strategy, and see it through until you're successful, right? That's what ultimately I see is the biggest problem, is that a lot of people just don't stay consistent. I always tell our students, the only way not to be successful in real estate is to quit. If you never quit, you will be successful. You can absolutely get rich as a real estate wholesaler and an investor by saying no to 99% of the noise out there. What I always recommend is to stay in your lane, right? Look at the landscape, choose your lane, and stick with it. You have to stay consistent and build your reps, and ultimately you'll get rich slowly by getting focused. Winners in this business know that they have to focus on what works, right? You have to say no more than you say yes. This world is full of distractions and focus is so rare and it's so valuable. You also have to think that you won't touch what you can't close. I'm all about pushing yourself and stretching yourself to new levels. But if you have no business chasing down a deal and you have no experience or really no capabilities of getting something closed, then don't waste your time on it. That's all I'm saying here. Don't confuse being busy with being productive and calling it wholesaling. There's so many things that you can do in this industry that are busy work that don't actually move the needle and actually produce revenue, right? We understand from working our system and our model that the highest revenue generating activity is submitting offers, right? Most people get it all wrong and they focus their time on trying to generate leads by putting up bandit signs and door knocking and cold calling lists that they don't even know who they're calling at the end of the day and just frankly bothering people. But if you spend your time submitting strategic offers to people who have properties for sale and you have your cash buyers in place, that's how your time is very effectively spent. And that's how you can scale to multiple six figures like many of our students in our program do. I hope this video resonated with you guys and this message got through. And look, again, I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to be harsh, but it's tough love. I want you guys to make money. I want you to get real results. So, if you guys have ever fallen prey to shiny object syndrome or chase deals that maybe you shouldn't have been spending time on, let me know your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys are doing, if this resonated with you, and overall, love to hear from you guys out there in the real estate skills community. Happy investing, and I'll see you in the next video.